Hi, I'm Sally Quinn. Welcome to the God Vote with Jacques Berlinerblau. Today we're going to discuss, guess what? The killing of Osama bin Laden and the ensuing euphoria and backlash. Jacques, this Sunday night we saw a lot of images like this one. So, Jacques, you've seen the national displays of jubilation. Do you think this is appropriate?
You know, Sally, I know there was a lot of hand-wringing about this, but I kind of do. We've had a terrible decade from 9/11 through the economic collapse. That's one. Secondly, we're not the type of people that go stampeding into the streets and, ululate every time an al-Zarqawi or a Saddam Hussein is killed. It's kind of a day of grace for Americans. The one thing I didn't like, which is just a little weird, is this kind of sports anthem approach, like we were watching a Bruins-Canucks game, but that's just because we don't have this tradition of celebrating the deaths of others. What did you make of it?
Well, there is Matthew 5:44, love thine enemy, and a whole sense of forgiveness, not only in the Christian religion, but others. So I must say I had a little feeling of discomfort watching everybody cheering. It was like New Year's Eve or Mardi Gras. And yet my own personal feeling was exhilaration, because I thought that evil had been destroyed.
Sally, we've seen the outpouring of national effusion in the United States. What do you think is the reaction in Pakistan?
We did not see, interestingly, people screaming and marching in thousands in the street burning American flags.
Well, some people paid their respects.
Yes, but we didn't see what we often see.
That's true.
Many Muslims feel that Osama bin Laden did more damage to Islam than anyone in the history of the world. One person said to me he was a murderous thug who dressed and spoke and acted like a holy man, but he was not a holy man. So I think that there's enormous relief. Jacques, the White House was obviously concerned about how to dispose of the body, and they determined to dispose of the body at sea. Do you think that was a wise choice?
I think it was a brilliant choice. It reminds me of the Obama 2008 campaign, where many of us who observed the campaign were like, wow, these guys think of everything in advance. They're always 3 steps ahead. Why was it a great idea? Because they deshrined the legacy of Osama bin Laden.
Why is that important?
Well, in many cultures, everyone from Jim Morrison to Saladin, right? People visit graves, and often they can rally politically. I think what the Obama administration did is they foreclosed a somewhat troubling possibility. What do you make of all of this?
Well, I think that the whole issue was whether it was done according to Muslim custom and culture.
And you think it was?
And I think that they did. Although supposedly if you die on land, you're supposed to be buried on land. If you die at sea, you're supposed to be buried at sea. So that was a little tricky. But I think that they did it within 24 hours. They wrapped him in a white cloth. They said the ritual prayers. Even though some of the radical imams have been saying this was an outrage and he shouldn't have been buried at sea, I think most people feel that even though there's been some eyebrow raising, that this was an appropriate thing to do. Well, Jacques, looking at 2012, what do you think this does to the presidential race?
Well, many of us are already wondering what's the second inaugural going to be like, Obama's second inaugural, right? He's a shoo-in. This is it. However, we have to be a little bit cautious here. H.W. Bush won the war in Iraq and Kuwait, and it was really an unambiguous victory, and he wasn't reelected. So I would prefer to remain a little bit cautious. Let me ask you this question. We're all patriots here. The Republicans are very happy. We're all Americans. But in terms of the candidates, who do you think is the most vexed by what must be President Obama's greatest foreign policy achievement yet?
I think this is going to be most difficult for the Christian right, because the Christian right has been promoting the notion that Obama is a Muslim. 20% of the people in this country believe that he's a Muslim. But now he's gone out and killed the ultimate symbol of radical Islam. Right. So I think this is going to be a very difficult time for them and a difficult issue for them to get around. You've been watching The God Vote with Jacques Berlinerblau. Please tweet us at OnFaith, and we'll see you next week.